Well, let's go further into this because I'm sure there's going to be parents listening who maybe have kids who are all over the place and maybe very sympathetic from a nervous system standpoint naturally. What are like specific foods that help you get into more of a parasympathetic state or more of a relaxed state?
Changing the macronutrient ratios really helps a lot. And what's really weird, if you think about it, is what if one kid is all hyper and excitability and the other one's a couch potato?
Yeah.
So how do you cook for that meal? So that's a lot of what our training and coaching does, how to make a meal and you letting the kid eat what is best for their type off the same plate. So it's not maybe one specific, you can make a meal for the family, but the parasympathetic's gonna eat more, he's gonna like that meat and fat a lot more than the other one who's might like just the vegetables and fruits and things like that. And it's always a combination, and it's always, you know, you do something and then you observe the outcomes. And so we talk about building health a lot like sailing a boat. I don't know if you've sailed before, but you zigzag. You can't sail, oh, I'm going straight across. No, you're going to go with the wind and the currents and the waves slapping up against the bow and the size of your hull and your keel and your sails and things. You're going to have to, tack and come about and things like that. So it's kind of zigzag. There's no power health. There's no power boating to health. You've got to be able to do something consistently, observe the changes, and then kind of adjust accordingly. Everyone's on their own journey. And with the guidance and lab work, we found, well, here's really good places to start and what needs repairing, rebuilding, restoring, or rebalancing, or whatever it is. So it's a great system.
Yeah. So I want to see if I got this right. You had mentioned, and I know I know that we don't want to put blanket approaches on anything like that, but you mentioned if somebody is maybe more sympathetic and more in that fight and flight more regularly, that's their natural personality, then eating more maybe like carbs, like veggies and fruits are going to be potentially better at getting them into a parasympathetic state. And then somebody who is naturally more parasympathetic, naturally more in that rest and digest, maybe more heavy on protein and fats would help to balance things out appropriately. Is that, again, we're not a blanket approach, but is that roughly accurate?
There's some twists to it, but because there's both the sympathetic versus parasympathetic, the autonomic dominance and the oxidative rate, slow, fast, or somewhere in between. And so if you're lucky enough to be both parasympathetic and fast oxidizer, the answer to your question is yes.
Gotcha.
But you might have to vary it more variety and experiment a little bit more if you're a fast oxidizer but sympathetic dominant. So there's what we call the classic types, sympathetic and slow oxidizer. You take these people from the jungle whose tribes for 10,000 years have been warriors, and they're very sympathetic. Everything will kill you in the jungle. It's all, there's
Yeah.
the animals and things that will eat you, and then there's the warring tribe next door and all these different things. So you just kind of envision sympathetic dominant, warrior tribes, right? And because you can't see very far, the jungle's blocking your view, and then you take your classic fast oxidizer parasympathetics like the Eskimos who can see for 1,000 miles in all directions. Nothing's going to sneak up on them. They just fish and hunt and eat and procreate all day, right? So and they build things, but they're very industrious. They're very hard. So you can study it from, and that's a very broad and some might say biased opinion, but I've seen it in action. My cousin, I mean, was a priest up in Canada, and he had two Cree Indian as his parish. And man, we studied their diet and stuff and why they're all sick. Why are they all sick? Because they're fast oxidizer parasympathetics eating opposite. They're eating government food, and the mining camps would come into these areas and with junk, and they would eat the junk instead of eating fish and caribou. And so they all get sick. They're all in the dole with diabetes, going to government clinics, taking their medicine, and they're very unhappy. They have the highest suicide rate of any indigenous population. Why? Because they're really unhappy. And alcoholism is huge. Why? Because they don't eat the way they're supposed to eat. Yeah, I know that's breaking it down in a real simple way, but I've
Yeah.
seen that. I mean, I'm my own cousin, and we studied his Cree Indian. They're like almost Eskimos. They're way up, and they were known when the early settlers came over, had the most energy of anyone.
Yeah.
They could run over rocks across the lake all day and go kill a caribou and come back with it on their back, and were very robust people. Now they're all on government assistance.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
speaking very broadly and very biased in a very biased way, and I apologize for that. But I'm just trying to illustrate a point.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I think I have definitely, my biggest takeaway from today is the importance on kind of like knowing your metabolic type, knowing your oxidative rate, knowing your autonomic dominance. I think that's so key, and it's things that I've never taken to in account before myself. So that's super great.